Mom gave my inheritance to brother's gambling debts. His bookie works for me. Hey, Reddit, I need to get this off my chest because honestly, the irony of this situation is so unreal that I'm still processing it myself. This is a long one, but stick with me because the ending is worth it. I, 29 female, and this mess started when my dad died 3 years ago. But to understand why it hit me so hard, you need to know our family dynamics first. Growing up, it was me, my older brother Jake, 32 male, and our parents. From the outside, we looked normal. Middle-class suburbia. Dad's an accountant, mom teaches part-time. But inside, Jake was the golden child, and I was the responsible one. Jake could charm his way out of anything. Funny, outgoing, made friends everywhere. Teachers loved him despite missing homework. Mom and Dad thought his pranks were hilarious, even when he got suspended. Meanwhile, I got straight A's, never missed curfew, helped around the house without being asked. Being the responsible one becomes your identity. When Jake crashed Dad's car at 17, I gave him my part-time job savings for the deductible. When he got kicked out of college for partying, I helped write his appeal letters. When he couldn't make rent, I'd spot him hundreds. I thought I was being a good sister. Really, I was enabling him differently than my parents. They made excuses, I cleaned up messes. The pattern continued through our 20s. Jake bounced between jobs, never finding his calling. Sales, fired for not showing up. Restaurant management, quit because too stressful. Personal training, distracted by girlfriend. Each crash meant coming home to figure things out. Meanwhile, I grinded, got a business degree, started at an investment firm, worked 60-hour weeks, earned certifications on weekends. After 5 years, I got recruited by a private equity company. Incredible pay, meaningful work turning around struggling businesses. Did my family notice? When I told them about my new job, Mom said, "That's nice, honey. Jake's thinking about going back to school." When my first big bonus paid for dinner at a nice restaurant, Dad spent the meal discussing Jake's new passion for poker. Poker should have been a red flag, but we thought it was another phase like guitar, CrossFit, or cryptocurrency. Dad got sick when I was 26. Pancreatic cancer, moved fast. 6 months from stomach pain to funeral planning. I put my life on hold, used all vacation and sick days caring for him and supporting Mom. Jake meant well, but got uncomfortable during Dad's bad days, finding excuses to leave early. I didn't resent him then. People handle grief differently, right? At the funeral, Dad's lawyer read his will. House and most assets to Mom. But Dad left me and Jake each $75,000. Money he'd saved specifically for us kids. Use this wisely, his letter said. Sarah, I know you'll be smart with yours. Jake, I hope this gives you the foundation to build something real. Even from beyond the grave, Dad was taking care of Jake. I invested my inheritance and kept working. Jake said he'd start a business, though he was vague about what kind. Mom seemed relieved he finally had direction. For 6 months, things seemed normal. Jake stayed home but seemed focused, spending hours on his computer, researching business opportunities, and learning about markets. He dressed better, talked about networking. I should have asked more questions. The first sign something was wrong came at Mom's birthday dinner last year. At this Italian place Jake picked, his card got declined. Not unusual, so I paid, but his reaction bothered me. He seemed genuinely surprised, like he really thought money was there. Weeks later, Mom mentioned Jake borrowing a few thousand for business expenses, then more for equipment, more for office space he never rented. By Christmas, I was suspicious, but Jake gave vague answers about building capital and timing the market. The truth exploded in February. Mom called me at work, sobbing. Jake confessed no business existed. He'd been gambling, poker games, online betting, sports, casinos, everything. The $75,000 inheritance? Gone. Mom's loan money? Gone. And he owed $43,000 to very unfriendly people. I'm taking out a second mortgage, Mom sobbed. It's the only way. The house Dad left her. Her retirement security. At 58, working part-time with minimal savings, she'd work until death. Don't do anything yet, I said. That night at Mom's house, Jake looked like hell. Sarah, I fucked up. I really fucked up. At our childhood kitchen table, he told me everything. Started with friendly poker, escalated to online gambling, sports betting, casinos. Each loss drove him deeper, chasing previous losses. The inheritance lasted 4 months. Then he borrowed from Mom in small amounts, claiming business expenses. When she ran dry, he found credit cards, payday loans, finally a local bookie. Who's the bookie? I asked. Tony Marconi. Runs operations out of a downtown bar. Sarah, these guys don't mess around. My blood went cold. Tony Marconi? You know him? I knew him professionally. Here's what I haven't mentioned. My private equity firm specializes in distressed businesses and asset recovery. When companies can't pay debts, we buy them at discounts and collect. 18 months ago, Tony got overextended on bad investments. Real estate, failed restaurant, other ventures. He owed $300,000 to various creditors. My company bought most of his debt. Instead of squeezing him immediately, I'd structured a deal. Tony had a network of people owing him money. Small-time gamblers, borrowers. We restructured so he'd pay us a percentage of collections plus monthly minimums. It worked perfectly. Tony didn't know I'd structured his deal. Lawyers handled everything. But I knew his entire operation, money flow, biggest debtors. I'd never connected Jake Sullivan to my brother. Sullivan was Mom's maiden name Jake used after destroying his credit. Show me the paperwork, I demanded. Jake produced crumpled IOUs, betting slips, loan agreements. Professional detachment mixed with personal fury as I reviewed standard gambling debts. High interest, aggressive terms, but legal. Then I saw something that stopped me cold. The most recent agreement wasn't signed by Tony Marconi. It was signed by Liam Webb, Tony's lieutenant. Liam Webb, who I'd met during debt restructuring. Liam Webb, who reported directly to me on Tony's payments. I stepped outside to make a phone call. Liam, it's Sarah Chen from Sterling Recovery, I said when he picked up. I need to ask you about Jake Sullivan. He owes about $43,000? Pause. Yeah, he's on our books. Why? He's my brother. 10 seconds of silence. Well, shit. That's complicated. I met Liam the next day at a coffee shop. Big guy, always professional, but today he looked uncomfortable. Look, Sarah, I like you, but business is business. Your brother owes money. I understand. But Tony's debt to my company is 6 times what Jake owes you. Let's work something out. I showed him Tony's payment schedule. At his current rate, Tony will be paying us for 15 years. I could restructure that debt, reduce the total for a lump sum, or accelerate payments if needed. Liam leaned back. You're using Tony's debt as leverage to forgive your brothers. I'm finding mutually beneficial solutions. He smiled. I see why you're good at this job. The next day, I met Tony at his office above the bar. Surprisingly professional setup. Tony was thin, well-dressed, 50s. Not the stereotypical bookie I'd imagined. Sarah Chen, he said, shaking my hand. Liam tells me we have a situation. For an hour, we talked business. I explained my company's control over his financial future. He detailed Jake's debt. Very professional, very cordial. Our agreement. Tony forgives Jake's debt entirely. In exchange, I restructure Tony's debt, reducing it by $50,000 and extending the timeline. My company still gets good returns. Tony saves long-term and eliminates a problem debtor. One condition, Tony said. Your brother's permanently banned from my operations. If he gambles elsewhere and gets in trouble, that's on him. One-time courtesy. Understood. And Jake doesn't know about this. Tony nodded. Probably for the best. I drove to Mom's the next day, finding Jake jumping at every car sound. Good news. I called in favors. Jake's debt is forgiven. Mom cried with relief. Jake stared at me. What do you mean forgiven? You don't owe the money anymore. How? I'd prepared this. I work debt recovery. I know people. Sometimes debts get restructured, forgiven in larger deals. But Jake looked at me strangely. Sarah, what did you do? I fixed your problem. Number, what did you do? You don't just call in favors for $43,000? What did this cost? I lost my temper. What does it matter? Your debt's gone. Mom keeps her house. You move on. Why can't you just say thank you? Because I know when someone's bullshitting me. Mom tried intervening, but Jake continued. Don't you get it, Mom? Sarah saved us. Do you know what $43,000 means to her? What kind of position this puts her in? Actually, the money was nothing. My bonus was twice that. But seeing Jake finally understand consequences, that his actions rippled outward, that was unexpected. I'm sorry, he said, and I believed him. I don't know how to make this right. Get help. Real help. Therapy. Gamblers Anonymous. Because if this happens again, I can't fix it. Jake nodded. I found a GA meeting. Going tomorrow night. Over the next few months, Jake actually followed through. He started going to meetings, got a sponsor, found a steady job managing inventory at a warehouse. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and he stuck with it. He moved out of Mom's house and into a small apartment. Most importantly, he stayed away from gambling. I thought that was the end of the story. Jake got his life together, Mom kept her house, and I went back to my normal routine. Everything was fine, except it wasn't fine. Because Mom had gotten it into her head that I was some kind of miracle worker, who could solve any problem with a phone call. It started small. Her car needed expensive repairs. Could I talk to someone about getting a better price? Her property taxes went up. Did I know anyone at the city who could help? Each time I'd explain that I couldn't just magically fix everything, but she'd keep asking. Then, about 6 months after Jake's debt was forgiven, Mom called me with a new problem. Sarah, honey, I need to ask you something, and I don't want you to get mad. That's never a good way to start a conversation. What's up, Mom? Well, you know how you helped Jake with his gambling problem? Yeah. I was wondering if you could help him again. Just a little bit. I felt my stomach drop. Mom, what happened? Nothing bad, she said quickly. It's just that Jake wants to start a business. A real business this time. And he needs some startup capital. How much? Well, he found this food truck that's for sale, and it's a really good deal. But he needs to move fast. The seller wants $25,000. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Mom, where is Jake getting $25,000? That's what I wanted to ask you about. I know you have connections, and you were so helpful before. I thought maybe what? Maybe you could help him get a loan? Or maybe you could lend it to him yourself? I know you're doing well, and it would be such a great opportunity for him. I felt like I was trapped in some kind of time loop. Mom, Jake has no credit, no collateral, and a recent history of gambling addiction. No legitimate lender is going to give him $25,000. But you have connections. My connections aren't for getting loans for family members to buy food trucks, I interrupted. That's not how any of this works. There was a long pause. Then Mom said, Sarah, I already told Jake you'd help. You what? He was so excited about this opportunity, and I didn't want to disappoint him. I told him his sister would figure something out. I hung up the phone and immediately called Jake. Hey, Sarah, he answered, sounding happier than I'd heard him in years. Mom told you about the food truck? Jake, I'm not giving you $25,000. The line went quiet, but Mom said, Mom was wrong. I helped you out of your gambling debts because those debts were dangerous. But I'm not going to fund whatever business idea you have this week. It's not just an idea, Jake said, his voice getting defensive. I've been researching this for months. Food trucks are a great investment, and this one comes with an established route and customer base. Then get a business loan. Sarah, you know I can't get a loan. But you could? No. Come on, we're family. After everything you've done, what's $25,000 more? And there it was. The assumption that because I'd helped once, I was obligated to keep helping forever. The assumption that my money was somehow family money, available whenever someone needed it. Jake, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to really hear me. I helped you with your gambling debts because Mom was going to lose her house. That was an emergency. This is not an emergency. This is you wanting me to fund your business because you can't get funding anywhere else. But no buts. Find another way. I hung up and thought that was the end of it. But Jake had inherited the same charm that had gotten him out of trouble his whole life, and now he turned it on Mom. For the next 2 weeks, Mom called me every day. Jake had found an investor, but they wanted him to put up half the money himself to show he was committed. Jake had talked to the current owner, who was willing to hold the truck for him, but not for long. Jake had already quit his warehouse job because he was so sure this was going to work out. That last one made me see red. He quit his job? He had to, Mom said. The food truck needs someone who can be there full time, and his boss wouldn't give him flexible hours. So now he has no job and no food truck. That's why we need your help, honey. Jake has really turned his life around, and this could be his big break. I took a deep breath. Mom, Jake didn't turn his life around. He went to some meetings and got a job. Turning your life around takes years of consistent good choices. This is just another get-rich-quick scheme. It's not a scheme, Mom said. It's a legitimate business opportunity. Then he can get a legitimate business loan. Sarah, please, I'm begging you. Jake is so close to having a real future, and you're the only one who can help him get there. I should have stood firm. I should have explained again why this was a bad idea. I should have hung up the phone and let Jake figure out his own problems. Instead, I said, fine, but not $25,000. How much? I'll lend him $10,000 as a personal loan with a contract at market interest rates. If he defaults, I keep whatever collateral he puts up. Mom was quiet for a moment. What kind of collateral? That's between me and Jake. But Mom, this is it. This is the last time I'm helping him financially. Do you understand? After this, Jake is on his own. Of course, honey. This is all he needs to get started. I drew up a proper loan agreement. $10,000 at 8% interest to be repaid over 3 years. Jake would put up his car as collateral, a 5-year-old Honda that was worth about $8,000. If he missed 2 consecutive payments, I could repossess the car and consider the loan satisfied. Jake wasn't thrilled with the terms, but he signed. Within a week, he'd bought the food truck, a 15-year-old truck that needed more work than he'd anticipated. The established route and customer base turned out to be mostly food truck events that required him to pay for spots and compete with dozens of other vendors. For about 3 months, Jake really tried to make it work. He was out there every day, learning to cook, dealing with customers, trying to build a business. I actually started to think maybe he'd finally found something he could stick with. Then he missed his first loan payment. When I called him about it, he had a dozen excuses. The truck had needed unexpected repairs. Food costs were higher than he'd budgeted. He'd had to pay for permits and licenses he hadn't known about. But he was sure things would turn around next month. He missed the second payment too. I called him again. This time, his phone went straight to voicemail. I tried texting. No response. I even drove by the address he'd given me for the food truck's location, but it wasn't there. Finally, I called Mom. "Oh, honey," she said. "Jake's going through a rough patch. The food truck business is harder than he expected." "Where is he, Mom?" "He's staying here for a few days while he figures things out." "And the truck?" There was a long pause. "Well, that's complicated." It turned out Jake had parked the food truck behind a friend's house and just stopped. When the friend asked him to move it, Jake said he would, but then never did. Eventually, the friend had it towed. By the time Jake found out where it had been towed to, the storage fees were more than the truck was worth. "So the truck is gone," I said. "It's not gone," Mom said. "It's just unavailable right now." "Mom, Jake defaulted on his loan. According to the contract, I can repossess his car." "Sarah, you can't be serious. How is he supposed to get to job interviews without a car? He should have thought of that before he stopped making loan payments." Mom started crying. "Please don't do this. Jake made a mistake, but he's learned from it. He's already talking to some employers, and he's got a good lead on a sales position." "A sales position?" "Mom, Jake has never been successful at sales. Every sales job he's had, he's been fired from within 6 months. This one is different. It's with a friend of his from Georgia, someone who understands his situation." I rubbed my temples. I could feel a headache coming on. "What kind of sales?" "Insurance. Auto insurance. The guy says Jake has the personality for it." "Auto insurance sales." I knew enough about that industry to know that most people who got into it washed out within a year. The successful salespeople were either naturally aggressive or willing to do whatever it took to make a sale. Jake was neither. But I also knew that if I took his car, he really wouldn't be able to get to interviews or work. And despite everything, I didn't want to see him fail completely. "Here's the deal," I told Mom. "Jake has 30 days to get current on his loan payments. If he can pay the 2 months he's behind plus the current month, I'll let him keep the car. But if he misses another payment after that, I'm done. No more conversations, no more negotiations. I take the car and we're finished." "Thank you, honey. You won't regret this." I already regretted it. Jake did get the insurance sales job for exactly 4 months. According to Mom, he was really good at connecting with customers, but struggled with the paperwork requirements. In other words, he could charm people but couldn't close deals. He made exactly 1 loan payment during those 4 months. When he got fired from the insurance job, I got a call from Mom. This time, she didn't even pretend to ask me for help. She just informed me that she'd decided to take out a home equity loan to pay off Jake's debt to me. "Mom, no," I said. "We've been through this. Sarah, I can't watch my son lose his car, and I can't have my children fighting over money. This way, Jake owes me instead of you, and we can work out a payment plan that makes sense for his situation. His situation is that he doesn't pay his debts. That's not fair. Jake is trying his best." "Is he?" Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like Jake is doing what he's always done, making commitments he can't keep and expecting other people to fix the consequences. Mom was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I already signed the loan papers." I felt something snap inside me. "You did what?" "The money will be in my account tomorrow. I'll pay off Jake's loan to you, and then he can pay me back when he's able to." "Mom, do you understand what you just did? You took out a loan against your house, the house Dad left you, to pay off Jake's debts. Again. It's my house," she said defensively. "I can do what I want with it. And when Jake doesn't pay you back, when he finds another get-rich-quick scheme or another emergency that requires more money, what happens to your house then?" "Jake will pay me back." "Based on what? His track record?" "Mom, Jake has never, not once in his entire adult life, followed through on a financial commitment. What makes you think this time will be different?" "Because he's my son, and I have to believe he'll do the right thing." I hung up the phone and sat in my office, staring out the window at the city skyline. I'd spent my entire life watching my parents enable Jake's irresponsibility, but this was different. This wasn't just giving him gas money or paying for his car repairs. This was Mom risking her retirement, her security, her home. And for what? So Jake could avoid the consequences of his actions one more time? That night, I called my financial advisor and had him run some numbers. Based on Mom's income and expenses, she'd be paying on that home equity loan for at least 15 years. At her age, she'd be working until she was in her 70s just to keep the house Dad had left her. Unless Jake actually paid her back, which we all knew wasn't going to happen. I thought about calling Jake directly, but what was the point? He'd gotten what he wanted, his debt was gone, and he got to keep his car. He'd probably already moved on to his next scheme. Instead, I did something I'd never done before. I started looking into Jake's activities. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Jake had a new girlfriend, Amy, who he'd met at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting. Amy was a recovering gambling addict too, but she'd been clean for 3 years and had a good job as a nurse. They'd been dating for about 2 months. More importantly, Amy had savings. About $30,000 she'd been putting aside for a down payment on a house. I found this out because Amy had posted about it on social media. She was so proud of reaching her savings goal and was excited about starting to look at houses. Jake had been commenting on all her posts, talking about how proud he was of her and how excited he was about their future together. I had a sinking feeling I knew where this was headed. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, Mom called me with news. Jake and Amy were moving in together. Wasn't that wonderful? They'd found this great apartment, and Amy was going to pay the security deposit and first month's rent while Jake got back on his feet. What about Jake's rent? I asked. Well, he's between jobs right now, but Amy understands his situation. She's being very supportive. I bet she was. A month later, Mom called again. Jake and Amy were thinking about starting a business together. They'd found this great opportunity in real estate wholesaling. You buy houses that need work, fix them up quickly, and sell them for a profit. Jake had been researching it online and thought he had a real talent for it. How much does this business cost to start? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Well, they need some capital to buy their first house. Amy has some savings, and she's excited about the opportunity. There it was. Jake's latest scheme was going to drain his girlfriend's down payment savings, just like his gambling had drained his inheritance, and his food truck had cost me $10,000. But this time, I wasn't going to sit back and watch it happen. I found Amy's contact information and called her directly. Hi, Amy. This is Sarah, Jake's sister. I was wondering if we could meet for coffee sometime. I'd love to get to know the woman who's made my brother so happy. Amy was thrilled to hear from me. Jake had told her so much about his amazing sister who worked in finance. She'd love to meet me. How about tomorrow afternoon? We met at a Starbucks near Amy's work. She was a sweet woman in her early 30s, the kind of person who probably became a nurse because she genuinely wanted to help people. She talked about Jake with this glow in her eyes, about how he was different from other guys she'd dated, how he was working so hard to turn his life around. Jake told me about the business opportunity you two were looking into, I said, after we'd been chatting for a while. Amy's face lit up. Oh, the real estate thing. I'm so excited. Jake has such a good eye for properties. And I've always been interested in real estate. It seems like the perfect opportunity for us to build something together. How much are you planning to invest? Well, Jake found this house that would be perfect for our first flip. It's in a great neighborhood. Just needs some cosmetic work. The seller wants $28,000 for it. $28,000. Almost exactly what Amy had saved for her down payment. Amy, I said carefully, what do you know about Jake's financial history? Her smile faltered slightly. I know he's had some struggles, but that's in the past. He's been going to meetings, he's staying clean, and he's really committed to building a stable life. Has he told you about the gambling debts? The food truck? The loan he defaulted on? Amy set down her coffee cup. He told me he made some mistakes, but he said his family helped him get back on his feet. You helped him, actually. He talks about you all the time, about how successful you are, and how proud he is of you. I took a deep breath. Amy, Jake didn't make some mistakes. Jake has a 20-year pattern of financial irresponsibility. He's never held a job for more than 6 months. He's never paid back a loan. He's never followed through on a single business venture. And right now, he's about to do to you what he's done to my mom and me. Take your money for a scheme that's going to fail and leave you with nothing. Amy's face went pale. That's not... Jake wouldn't do that. He loves me. I'm sure he does love you. But Jake also loves the idea of easy money more than he loves anyone or anything else. And right now, you represent easy money. I pulled out my phone and showed her the loan agreement Jake had signed with me. This is the contract for the money I lent him for his food truck. Look at the payment schedule. Now look at how many payments he actually made. Amy stared at the screen for a long time. 2 payments, she said quietly. 2 payments out of 36. Amy, I had to threaten to repossess his car to get him to take the loan seriously. And even then, he defaulted. My mother ended up taking out a home equity loan against the house my father left her just to pay off Jake's debt to me. Jake told me his mom helped him out with some old debts. His mom risked her retirement and her home to clean up his mess. Again. And now, he's going to do the same thing to you. Amy was crying now. But he seemed so sincere. He said this was his chance to prove himself, to show that he could be the man I deserve. Jake is sincere, I said. That's the problem. He sincerely believes that this time will be different. He sincerely thinks he's going to succeed. But sincerity doesn't pay back loans or build successful businesses. I pulled out a business card and handed it to her. Amy, I work in finance. I see business plans and investment opportunities every day. If you want to invest in real estate, there are legitimate ways to do it. Ways that don't involve handing $28,000 to someone with no experience and a history of failure. Amy took the card with shaking hands. What should I do? Don't give Jake your savings. If he really loves you and wants to build a business with you, tell him to prove it by saving up his half of the investment money first. If he can save $14,000 while holding down a steady job, then maybe he's serious about changing. And if he can't, then you'll know what his priorities really are. Amy called me 3 days later. She'd talked to Jake about my suggestion, and he'd exploded. How dare she listen to his jealous sister over him? Didn't she trust him? Didn't she believe in their future together? He'd stormed out of their apartment and hadn't come back. I think I know what kind of man he really is now, Amy said. Thank you for warning me. Jake came home to Mom's house that night. The next morning, Mom called me. Sarah, what did you do? I protected an innocent person from becoming Jake's next victim. Jake is devastated. He really cared about Amy, and he was so excited about their business opportunity. Mom, it wasn't a business opportunity. It was Jake trying to get Amy to fund another one of his schemes. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because it's the same pattern he's been following his entire adult life. Find someone with money, convince them to invest in his latest idea, then disappear when it fails. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Jake says you're jealous of his success. I actually laughed. What success? The gambling addiction? The failed food truck? The job he got fired from? He's trying, Sarah. He's really trying to turn his life around. And every time he gets close, you tear him down. I'm not tearing him down. I'm pointing out reality. Jake is 32 years old, Mom. When are you going to stop making excuses for him? When are you going to start acting like his sister instead of his enemy? I hung up the phone and realized something had shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't feeling guilty about not helping Jake. I wasn't second-guessing my decision, or wondering if maybe this time really would be different. I was angry. I was angry at Jake for never learning from his mistakes. I was angry at Mom for enabling him. But mostly, I was angry at myself for participating in this cycle for so long. That's when I decided to stop participating entirely. Jake called me that afternoon. Sarah, we need to talk. No, we don't. Amy broke up with me because of you. Because of the lies you told her about me. I didn't tell her any lies, Jake. I told her the truth about your financial history. If the truth made her break up with you, that's on you, not me. I can't believe you're my sister. After everything I've been through, after how hard I've been trying, Jake, you haven't been trying. You've been scheming. There's a difference. That's bullshit, and you know it. I went to GA meetings. I got a job. I stayed clean. You went to GA meetings until you found a girlfriend there. Then you stopped. You got a job and got fired within 4 months. And you stayed clean from gambling, but you didn't stay clean from looking for easy money. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You know what? You're right. I should have known better than to expect help from someone who's never failed at anything in her life. I've failed at plenty of things, Jake. The difference is I learned from my failures instead of expecting other people to fix them. Yeah, well, maybe if I had Daddy's trust fund money to fall back on, I'd be perfect too. That hit me like a slap. Daddy's trust fund money? Jake, we got the same inheritance. The exact same amount. You gambled yours away in 4 months. I invested mine and used it to build a career. You got opportunities I never had. I created opportunities. There's a difference. Jake hung up on me. I thought that would be the end of it. But Jake had one more card to play. The next week, Mom called me with devastating news. Jake had attempted suicide. He's in the hospital, Mom sobbed. He took a whole bottle of pills. The doctors say if Amy hadn't found him when she did, I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. Is he okay? He's stable. But Sarah? He left a note. He said he couldn't live with being such a disappointment to everyone. He said his own sister had given up on him. So why should he keep trying? The guilt hit me like a tsunami. Had I pushed him too far? Had my refusal to enable him anymore driven him to this? I drove straight to the hospital. Jake was awake but groggy from the medications. When he saw me, he started crying. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I sat down next to his bed and took his hand. Jake, I'm sorry too. I should have handled things differently. No, you were right. About everything. I am a failure. I do take advantage of people. I don't know how to change. You can change, I said, but you have to want to change for yourself, not because someone else is pushing you to. Over the next few days, while Jake was in the psychiatric ward, I had time to think about everything that had happened. I realized that I'd been as much a part of the problem as Mom had been. She enabled him by making excuses. I enabled him by fixing his problems. Both approaches taught him that his actions didn't have real consequences. When Jake was released from the hospital, he went into a residential treatment program for people with gambling addictions and co-occurring mental health issues. For the first time in his adult life, he was in an environment where no one was going to rescue him from the consequences of his choices. It was exactly what he needed. Jake spent 90 days in treatment. When he got out, he moved into a sober living house and got a job at a call center. Not glamorous work, but honest work that he showed up for every day. He started paying Mom back for the home equity loan. Only $50 a month, but consistent payments that he never missed. Most importantly, he stopped asking for money. When his car broke down, he took the bus until he could save up for repairs. When he wanted to move into his own apartment, he waited until he had enough for the security deposit and first month's rent. Small steps, but real ones. It's been 8 months since Jake got out of treatment. He's still at the call center, still living in the sober house, still going to meetings. Last week, he called me to ask if I wanted to have lunch. I owe you an apology, he said over sandwiches at a deli near his work. Actually, I owe you a lot of apologies, but mostly I want to thank you. For what? For being the first person who ever let me fail. Really fail, without swooping in to fix it. I needed to hit bottom, but I never could because there was always someone there to catch me. Jake, I didn't want you to fail. I just wanted you to succeed on your own. I know that now. And I want you to know that I'm going to pay you back, you. The money you lent me for the food truck, I'm going to pay it back. It might take a while, but I'm going to do it. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I have to, for me. I need to prove to myself that I can follow through on something. I looked at my brother, really looked at him, and saw something I'd never seen before. Not charm, not schemes, not excuses, just determination. Okay, I said. But we do it right. A proper payment plan, in writing, that you can actually stick to. Jake smiled. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. As I drove home from lunch, I thought about everything that had led us to this point. All the money, all the drama, all the pain. It had taken Jake 32 years and a suicide attempt to finally understand that no one could save him from himself. But in the end, maybe that was the most valuable lesson either of us had ever learned. Jake is paying me back $50 a month. At that rate, it'll take him about 17 years to repay the loan. But you know what? I think he's actually going to do it. And that's worth more than any amount of money.